Catherine, Marianne, and myself. There are 5 items on the agenda. One is a continuation. Are there any conflicts with the voting members for any of these?
Yes, I do.
Okay, which one?
Heindes are my next door neighbors.
721.
Yeah, haven't met them yet, but I shouldn't be talking at the meeting, I guess, about it. Although you can call on me as a neighbor later, can't you?
Yes.
In case I have a thought. And just in case I have an interesting thought.
Okay. Eric, would you be able to vote on that one?
Sure.
Okay. So I believe that's all the business. So we can get started with, I see Alan.
And Frank in the back.
Yes.
Wave. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Should I begin now or are we waiting?
Yep.
No, do you need me to share the screen or can you do it?
Yes, can you share the screen, Andrea, please?
I can. So let's see. We'll start out with, hold on. No, we don't want that yet. We don't. We have, hold on. Just a second. I am looking for, all right, I have, here we go. Is this what you'd like to see first? Oh, you can, I can't, hold on. You can't see it yet.
Maybe the site plan, if you could pull up the site.
Yeah, hold on. See, I'm not as adept at this as Miss Tracy. So, but I'm working on it.
You're doing a great job.
So far I haven't shown you anything.
Patience.
Patience is right. Normally, this is a missing part of my screen.
And Andrea, I noticed that the town website is not being very responsive in case that might be involved in the trouble you're having.
Well, I think it's just me. Thank you, though. Kind of you, but I think it's just me. So hold on. This is nuts. This was fine before, but now it's not.
But your hair looks good.
Hey, thanks. I'm getting a cut tomorrow. That's always the way it goes, right? So I just need to. This is crazy. So I'm sorry, everybody. I just need, all right. There's Josh. Hi, Josh. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know how the camera knows what's.
Well, this is getting to be really boring.
It's
Sorry.
the screen.
Hi, Andrea, it's George. You might have to maximize your screen so the toolbar shows on the bottom.
I know, thank you. You are brilliant.
Well, I've been accused of worse.
All right, maximize my screen. Okay. This is nuts.
Knock it off. See what it does, you see?
All right, everybody, talk amongst yourselves.
Well, if anyone has a paper copy, we could look at the site plan old school.
No, that's not fun. That doesn't work.
Paper doesn't work?
I think
People at
we
home
have
can't see
updated
it.
copies, don't we? We could get started anyway.
Yeah,
Well,
We do have
no
paper
pressure on
copies.
Andrea as she toodles along there.
yeah, we can speak.
Yeah,
This is
I don't know who has a
ridiculous.
copy.
I
Go ahead,
got
Al.
my paper copy.
Why don't you start, Al?
Yeah,
Okay,
you
so
would think,
I guess if you go to the site plan,
what the hell? Oh, that's gonna
Um,
get recorded. I said a bad word.
you'll see that the house has been shifted back in the lot to almost 14 feet from where it was about 4 feet before. So we've really taken it off of the street front,
Wonderful.
just to allow for some grading. So in doing that, we're raising the first floor of the existing home up to elevation 20, and we're going to regrade around that front portion based on some feedback and acceptance from the Conservation Commission to 18. So it won't be the hollow that it is now. The house will be raised up. So and then it steps back down again to elevation 17.6, the back new portion of the home. And that step down allows us to align the ridges and sort of honor the front older portion of the home that we're.
How did you manage to get back that far? Is it shrinking the house or moving the house?
It's just, no, it wasn't. So basically now that we had a footprint, or general footprint, we could take a look at the impact as far as conservation. And we moved it back, which I thought was, when I worked with my engineer, which was an acceptable distance in relation to the 50-foot buffer zone in the back.
Good.
Which is about 10 feet off the deck area there. So that we have the ability to move it back a little further or a little forward, again, with conservation, working with conservation. But I feel that that's a good location from the conservation and engineering standpoint.
I think it's a big difference, and you didn't have to shrink the living room to do it.
No, we didn't.
Yay.
So Al, could you just go back a second there? Did you say that the house was going to sit up on a little knoll and then dip back down towards the rear of the house where you?
No, it's not a knoll. It's just regrading. So right now the house sits in a sort of a depression. We're just going to bring it up to physically rotate the house 90 degrees, then raise it up, and then grade around it. Yeah.
I'll address that. So if you look out at the front of the house, the front of the proposed existing house and the distance between the space between the street and the house, it's just a very gradual grade there. It's not so the existing, so you've got grades there that go from 16 at the street line, 16 plus, and goes 17, 18 to the house. So it's basically a 2-foot little area that's graded in the front of the house. So the ultimate goal was to have no railing on the stairs and have, only 2 feet of foundation showing at that point.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think we have it finally.
Oh, we're doing fine, Andrea. Oh.
Yo,
Yeah, the problem is that people at home can't see it when we do this.
Oh, of course.
is this it?
Yes.
Hooray.
Well done, lady.
Yeah, well, it shouldn't have taken me this long, but I've been dependent on Miss Tracy, and so my skills have deteriorated. All right.
So, yeah, that's the cover.
Continue.
If you scroll down one,
Yes, I
You
can
see
do
the
that.
site plan, which we're just talking about now. Yeah. It's, of course, small in scale, but that's the area setting back from the North Street about 13, almost 14 feet, fitting within the 50-foot buffer, which is the green line closest to the left side property line. So we're within the 50-foot buffer, outside the 50-foot buffer, I'm sorry. And then this, Frank just spoke, but it allows for a larger turning radius in the driveway. We're preserving the garden shed garage structure. And then that speaks to the footprint, and we can speak more to that if you have any questions, or we can speak to the architecture.
I do have one more question, and I'm still a little confused why you're raising up the house if interior wise you have to have stairs going up to that level. Like the original house, it looks like you have 3 stairs going up to
Yes.
the original bit of the house.
Mhm.
It's just the house is so low and nestled right now. I'm just concerned that the change is going to be drastic. And so is there a way to achieve the ridge connection without raising the original house
Well,
up?
we worked on, so basically the grading of what's proposed is not going to, look a lot different than, what's there, there now. It's not as far as the height goes, obviously. But, it was a difficult task to get the headroom in between the 2 buildings in the back part of the living room area. And you can see that in the cross section we did. So in order to achieve some ceiling height, we actually made that area post and beam with 2.5-inch tongue and groove flooring to give the sense of more height in that first floor. And if you can see the second floor, again, we were just struggling to get the.
Want me to move this on?
Excuse me?
Do you want me to move this to another page?
Yeah, A3, if you can jump on that one.
All right, you have to give me instructions
Oh,
because I'm
nice.
not that bright. Hold on. What is this?
It's
A1.
almost the end.
Oh, well.
So is it the height for the second floor?
Oh, it's almost at the
Is
end?
the concern or the first floor?
Ooh, wait a minute.
Excuse me, if you could repeat that question again?
So is it the height for the second floor or is it the height for the first floor that you're?
It's a combination of both.
Right, if you just one more, I think.
One more, thank you.
No,
Like
one
I
more
said, I
again. SA
need
21. I'm just, watch me.
One more, Andrea.
One more?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, there it is.
There it is.
So that's-
Yay.
Right, so the left drawing depicts the section through the existing structure, and it's 15 foot 8 inches wide, and those dimensions speak to what's there. So when we turn it, that mass, we have to honor that. So, but we're also up against a bottom of structure elevation of 16.5, the bottom of the beam. That's the note that's furthest to the right lower corner of section A. But that's based on the Conservation Commission's criteria of where the structure can begin. So that's a working point. We've got the house ridge line at a working point, and those two that create the sandwich that we're trying to create, these 2 floors within. And that's why we're getting creative with using tongue and groove planking and post and beam construction and then sort of to maximize the feel and look of the first floor ceiling height at 8'2", and then the second floor ceiling height is much less than that, but it's still reasonable as a connector between the old house and what we're doing out the back. So the driving force behind all of this is aligning the ridge with the existing ridge of the existing structure, although we're raising the structure up out of the ground 2 feet.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges, and this is what we've come up with. So I don't know, it works quite well.
May I ask by doing this, will all the windows along the side of the house all line up at the same height? Still, these front windows will not be higher than the rest of the house windows. Right?
The front windows on the older portion of the house will be what they are. And the new windows will be at a different sill height, and we're going to extend the head height to get as much window as we can. So they'll be differently configured windows, but that transition, it'll be almost imperceivable because the house steps in and it hits out the back. So that's what the 3D models are trying to depict how that would be.
Maybe if we went back to that one picture we just looked at, it shows the whole side of the house from the outside. Yeah.
Little driveway side.
This one, Carol?
Like that, but the other side.
This side right there.
Yeah, if you want to go to A4, Andrea, that's sort of, what's a bird's eye, it's somewhat of a bird's view, but right there, the top, all of those sort of show the house from the North Street approach.
Okay, so my same question is, the height of the windows in the old part of the house out towards the street
Yeah,
will be, the sill will be the same height off the ground?
no, we're 2.5 feet lower at the new portion, we're stepping down.
Look at
2.5 feet, 2 feet.
201 or 200. You can see it on there.
2 feet.
820?
Yeah, it shows it.
That one.
Or she blows?
Do you see how they all look the same height?
No, they're not.
I know
But
what
they're
you're
not.
saying. I can see that.
Go up one more. Yeah, that page. If you zoom in on that, you can tell if we run a straight edge against your paper copy, you can see how much they drop.
The fascia and soffit on that addition is lower than the existing fascia soffit.
Okay, but I guess my question is silly because they have to be what they have to be inside, right? You can't.
No, well, it's you
sitting
got
on
the
the floor.
fascia soffit is lower than the existing fascia soffit in the house for a reason, to try to make it look right. And then, so those window heights, there's only really 4 windows on that side that really would be visible, and it's stepped back into the building, so it'd be hard to get a perspective on the height, the sill height. I think it would be more the distance between the existing fascia soffit and top of trim of window and the new proposed distance between fascia soffit and proposed windows.
And when I think about it, that goes back to what we were talking about last time about keeping the original old section, even though it's turned now and everything, keeping it looking different from the rest of the addition, the rest of the house.
Okay.
Yeah, with the shutters,
We'll add to
we
that.
talked about the treatment of the siding too, but I think, well, we can talk about that again.
Yeah.
What's the difference in the siding? Oh, just.
We're doing all collapse.
Well, I gave it some thought after the last meeting. And so I went around and really looked around at some of the older capes in town and did some of my own research, and through my own past experience, very rarely is the house of that age sided with shingles. It's typically clapboard. And so I would say 99% of the capes I saw on Main Street and around town, antiques of that age, were all white, all clapboard. And I think that way I was thinking of proposing all white windows, white clapboard siding, white trim, and then black shutters and a black door. So something more that looks like it's been there for 200 years.
Yeah, if anything got shingled, it might be the barn, but we're not even trying to make this look like it was a freestanding.
I would say,
barn.
I was looking at it and I thought about it. I said, instead of making it look separate, which I had originally thought, maybe just make it look like it's always been one thing and been there for a while.
Yeah.
I have a quick, just query to pose to the commission. I wonder, versus having a 2-foot reveal of veneer brick foundation, is there a way to mitigate that by creating a little bit more of a no grading?
Well, the The grading is really restrictive. If you're familiar with the zone floodplain construction,
You can't,
very limited to filling in the floodplain. So I looked at the calculations regarding that.
and you can't bring any more, the grade up anymore in the front.
No, you really can't. You're gonna push the envelope of, you're gonna have to do compensation in another area of the site, which is, a little more complicated.
But it sounds like you specifically looked at that.
What?
It sounds like you specifically looked at that, and this is,
Oh, I spent
Where we
quite a
come
bit
to,
of time with the engineers on this, because, as this process developed, I could see us getting closer to like a final footprint, at least from a standpoint of engineering, to look at calculations. And I looked at all those things. So minimal filling in the front, we can achieve it pretty easily. The brick is going to be real brick, not veneer, that I'm just on site. And that's basically how that's going to get treated.
Hey, Catherine, is it the height that's bothering you or the brick itself?
It's more that there's such a drastic change from the way the old house sat sideways to the road, way low in grade. It was like a sitting on grade. I know we can't duplicate that. That's not really grade building practices, but it's such a drastic change, and I'm just worried it's going to look tall, and it's going to just radically change the feel of that historic little cape.
Can we assume there'll be shrubs along there, or it's none of our business, but you like it?
There's privet hedges in front of it at this point right now that are about 8 feet tall, and all that's going to remain. But as far as the streetscape and landscaping, I mean, unfortunately, the floodplain is the floodplain.
Yeah.
And, we're trying to preserve a historic home, but also preserve it from being flooded and destroyed at some point. So I think it was an interesting proposal and a challenge. And me and Al have enjoyed working on it, but it's
But the
kind
issue
of
is
it's kind
not-
of tough. Excuse me?
forgive me, the issue is not, I think I'm hearing, that this was sort of an arbitrary choice. This is a choice that the realities of life have backed you into.
Correct. And it's only 1.5 story, and the houses to the right and left are 2.5 stories. And most of the houses on that street aren't small. And I think it's going to be a big improvement to the streetscape in that particular end of North Street.
Funny, we were just talking about Williamsburg and how many of those houses, which were all brought from other places, were put on brick foundations that showed like this. And maybe they had a floodplain problem too, but they all kind of sit propped up a little bit. There must be some reason for it.
And then I have one last thing is that the dormer still feels a hair high on the house from the driveway side. That dormer goes right from the ridge, and then it really ends quite high in the roof line. And then was there any other studies on that? Maybe bringing the.
I agree with that. And I think you just bring it down. I would bring it down. I think it looks odd on that 3D, but when you look at the cross section, it makes a little more
It's going to be
sense.
much more in scale, in reality.
Yeah, because it looks really, really.
Propped
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
We can move it forward. I have no problem.
It's forward, yeah.
Could you bring it down from the ridge and bring it forward to the, towards the driveway?
Yeah.
The face.
Yes.
That's where, it's gonna,
So that the dormer doesn't start at the ridge, because I think that will make a big difference. Because right
Okay.
now it's quite,
that's a good look. We can make that happen.
okay.
Daniel, did you have any comments?
My only comment in kind of researching and reading this more after our last meeting is that it's not the first time this house has moved. there's a lot of evidence that this house was moved to 302 North Street from farther down on North Street.
Really?
And so that's what's in the historical card is, wasn't documented, but the house might have been one of the early structures moved from the North Street Harbor area and moved. It was probably commercial, so probably not where, you know, it's not an original location most likely. So I'm comfortable moving it and rotating it to make it, you know, just like it did previously to fit with its needs. The only comment I have is there's a lot of evidence that suggests that it probably was shingle style. I lean more towards leaving the existing structure shingle and then complementing it with a clapper just to kind of give it that distinguishing note. But I'm not overly concerned about that. I just think it might be a nice touch. And then the last thing I had was, it feels a little forced or funny, but if nobody else on the commission is concerned with it, that overhang between the garage and the main structure. I know that was something you guys were working on and playing with, and it's not an easy thing. I just don't know if that's the right answer, or maybe it's just me. So I kind of be curious to know what the other commission members think of that.
Can you point to it, Daniel? What are you talking about?
It shows up better in the renderings, if you want to look at it, but it's the overhang. It's the entrance into the mudroom between the garage. And the
I see the cover page shows it pretty well.
yeah,
I'm sorry, which page?
The very
you
first
go to the
page.
cover or the rendering, second to last page.
I see what you're saying. It almost has a 70s vibe, Daniel. I wonder, even just creating a little dormer over the doorway, just raising it up a smidge, changing the roof plane over that might solve that.
Yeah, it just feels off, but again, just curious.
It feels 70s, yeah.
Doesn't
Well,
it?
I think that's a good idea to raise it up a little bit and make the roof line different in that location. Again, I find these renderings hard to get a good grasp of what it looks like, but I think that's a good suggestion to break up that roof line.
Oh, actually, I did have one more thing. Sorry, Tracy, on my list was just confirming, going through the cut sheets that you were planning to use either true divided or simulated divided lights with those Anderson or with those Marvins.
Said 3-part simulated.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Thanks.
And were there original windows to save in the original structure?
well, that's what the one question I had for the board was, you know, I was kind of taken away with the cost of those windows.
Oh,
They
yeah.
went up dramatically since the last time I purchased them. So maybe it makes sense to save the windows in but I don't, the windows in the existing house are not original windows to the house though. And that's the only,
Are they antique? They may not need to be original to be antique.
well, they're not, I don't think they're antique. I wouldn't call them antique.
Period.
What period? 1950s, 1940s, 1930s?
Vinyl.
I don't know. They're not 1800s at all. At least early 1800s.
But there are going to be 6/6, right? The whole house.
Yeah, so I was just looking for some feedback on the board. I mean, if these windows were original, you could see the glass was original, you know, older glass. I could see some reason to save them. But, you know, at this point, when they're all new, I don't know if it makes sense. But I'll leave that to the board.
So it would be maybe a 30s or a 50s era window with a storm versus
That's basically what it is right now. All the windows.
versus a simulated divided light all over.
Yeah, which with no storm, which I think is a much better look from aesthetically. I think
Yeah.
the aluminum storms look terrible.
Yeah.
Justin, did you have anything else?
I don't. I think the doorway roof line modification is an excellent suggestion, and it sounds like the owner might find some love for some of the windows, but it doesn't feel like a very hard issue for the commission.
Mary Ann?
No, I think it looks good.
Eric?
No, nothing to add other than I'm just looking at the Marvin cut sheet and the divided light. I think it doesn't match up to what's on the drawings. I don't think it says a simulated divided light in the drawings and the cut sheet. It's almost a 1 and 11/16 inch divided light section. So maybe just some clarity on that would be useful for everyone.
Well, that's the,
I think it's because, and that's what I was looking at was the cut sheet. I think the cut sheet is just, it just is the ultimate double hung. And it's not the specific one to the true divided light, but
Yeah, I got my quote was on the divided light window with the bar in the middle of the glass
yeah,
and 1/2-inch muttons.
Yeah.
Wood.
That's great.
I
Josh,
have just two more
any-
things. I see you have a chandelier, a pendant. Is that going under the eave where the
Yes,
garage door is?
yes.
And then are you replacing the front door of the original house? And
Yes, that's a new fiberglass door, so I'm
Okay.
replacing it with a wood fir door.
Okay,
Wood sill, oak sill.
thank you.
Josh, any comments?
Just a few thoughts. I echo the kind of the consensus that's developed tonight, but I still, I'm not super keen on the lack of. We've decided it's going to be an attached garage, and I understand why, but there really doesn't seem to be a lot of, at least, differentiation of that garage or de-emphasizing that garage. And I think, potentially shingling the garage might accomplish a little bit of that. It looks to me like those, not so much in this particular view, but in the some of the drawings, it looked like the steps to that side door are actually wider than the steps to the front door, which steals some of the thunder from the main entrance. I don't know if there would be any consideration of narrowing.
Oh, yeah, I didn't pick up on that. That's not gonna work.
Maybe just narrowing them so they don't run.
Yeah, I
don't
can see
span the
that.
whole
There's
distance.
no need for them to be that big. That was something I didn't see. I apologize.
And then there was a little mention last time of there was some discussion about keeping or demoing the existing shed. It looks like that's staying on this plan.
Yes, that's what we worked on as well. We're gonna keep that as well. And then, so back to the siding again, because we got a couple of different ideas there. So to minimize the look of the garage, obviously it would be just to blend it in with the rest of the house. If you want it to look a little different than the rest of the house, one of the comments from the board members was shingle the front and maybe clapboard the back. I don't know if I'd like to do that. I'd rather shingle the whole thing, make it match. I think it's just too small to break it up into pieces. But the garage definitely could be done with a different material, maybe a batten, board and batten, which would be more typical of a siding, to just break it up, but painted the same color.
There's just something about the massing of the attached garage that really doesn't feel right to
I
me.
think that's
But
an interesting point, Josh. I like your thoughts, and I think the board and batten is an interesting idea.
I like the shingle idea. I think it would look like an older barn that maybe got pulled up closer to the house, that maybe at one point it was sitting out in the backyard, but got added on later. But I do think it should be different.
I'm open to all those suggestions, and I think they're all very thoughtful. I think I have a lot more work to do through conservation. But I'd be willing to work with Andrea and the board, if it was to be approved, to go to work on those items through the board, as we move forward a little more.
Yeah, I think it sounds like we're probably ready to make a motion here. This is your third time back. The comments that I've heard are, I think maybe there should be a little bit more study on the existing windows in the existing home before we decide to replace those or not, or if they can tweak that dormer on the garage side a little bit, bring the roof line down, maybe bring the sill down a little bit. Narrow up those stairs to the mudroom so that they aren't competing with the front door. Change that roof line a little bit over the mudroom door. And then study differentiating the siding of the garage. Maybe take some cues from historic barns, whether it's shingle or whether it's board or batten. But I feel like those are all, things that could be worked through with Andrea.
Could I add one more?
Sure.
We haven't talked about the lights very much. I like the style you chose. I think that's very appropriate for the house. I'd love it if you could look into the next size up. These are only 4.5 inches wide.
Yeah.
And this is going to be quite a lot of house going on here now. And this would have been the lantern that they came to the front door with and hung up when they went in the house and so forth. It would have had to have been bigger than these. And I think they're going to look kind of little and diminutive.
You know what? I agree. I agree with that. And the size wasn't as much as the idea I was looking at. And I tend to look at when it's kind of up. Maybe I'm backwards, but I have to kind of see it up and look at the light in the space and where the block is and everything to see.
So are we approving this? Are we voting to approve this application as it stands? Because I think there's quite a bit more that we wanted to see done. So I'm wondering what our goal is here.
I would think we'd be making a motion to approve the massing, and they would be coming back at least to Andrea with some of this additional information, and then we could determine then whether it needed another hearing or not. But I think they could move forward with, developing the design, working on a permit, things like that. You agree, Andrea?
Yeah, the only thing is, I think we would need to see revised drawings for the dormer, for example, and the comments on the door, the alternate material for the barn, and that overhang for the barn, not barn, I'm sorry, the garage. So I think we need to see some revised drawings.
I agree.
And I don't know, it doesn't sound, Frank, it doesn't sound like if we were to, I don't know, Tracy, what do you think? I'm almost thinking it might be useful just to extend this, continue this, so we can look at the revised drawings. I don't know, what do you think?
Sure.
I don't know, that's just my thought. Anybody else? I know Frank's not like in a desperate hurry here.
Yeah, it sounds like Frank is a common, happy to work on them. If I'm not overstating it, Frank, that you're willing, you're okay taking it to the next.
I think Al is.
Kind of sound like a fairly.
Al is happy that it's extended.
I suggest you vote. I think these are small items
Yeah,
that we can resolve with Andrew. This is not much. The dormer and the rendering is shown graphically high on the ridge. In reality, it won't be there. So that's my bad. But I know it's going to be just right because that's how it's going to be. The lights are small. We can fix that. The siding, we can fix that. That's just siding. The massing, I can tweak the roof. But that's just a tweak where the roof connects the garage to the main house. I can sketch that and sit with Andrew and prove that, and it'll all be in the working drawings when it goes through the permitting process. It's going to be a gem. And we can meet again. It's great, but I don't understand why.
Can I ask a question to the board? Because this is kind of a unique situation with it being in the floodplain. Because you don't have many of these homes. You have one other one on South Street. Conservation is a challenge. It's not, I'm very comfortable moving forward with it, but it's a challenge. But all I needed was a footprint. But they may require some changes. So would it make more sense for us to maybe approve a plan with some conditions that I have to come back for approval after I get conservation. I won't even be able to, I can't even get a building permit unless you guys give me a final approval.
Right.
But if there's any movement to the house that would affect the Historic District Commission, I think you'd probably want to see that.
So
Instead
we're
of approving
the
it
footprint.
and then coming back, you know what I mean? I think we're at a point where that both boards could kind of work to make it happen at this point.
So do you want us to approve the footprint as it is and then you'll come back and,
I think the massing, I'd like to have the massing and the footprint approved, and I will come back for exterior details, roof line adjustments that were made in a public meeting that we were gonna accommodate. All those items we're gonna do.
Was
It's just-
on the list of things that folks had talked about tonight, was there anything, I'm trying to remember, that would count as affecting the massing?
No,
I think there were a lot of details and treatments that sounded like excellent suggestions, but it sounded like the massing felt settled.
oh, I think Daniel has his hand up.
I was just gonna make a motion.
go for it.
Make a motion to issue a certificate of appropriateness for the footprint and massing for 302 North Street, located in the Lincoln Historic District per the plans dated 11/9/2022. The applicant to return to review exterior aesthetics, including roof lines, and final material selections and modifications to the dormer following Conservation Commission review.
Second,
Brilliant.
All right. Justin, how do you vote?
vote aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye,
Catherine?
Aye.
That's an aye for me.
nice work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much.
It was a lot of work. We'll be back.
It'll
I
get
know.
better. Thank you.
Thank you.
night, Andrea.
Frank,
Good night,
hold on. Frank, hold
Yes.
on. You're gonna have to come in and sign another extension for me, please.
Okay,
All
all
right.
right. Are you in the office tomorrow or should I come in Monday?
I think tomorrow's fine. Don't forget we
Okay.
close at 1.
Okay,
Beautiful.
I quit at
Thank you.
12. I'll
Thank
see you.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Second item. 5
Five.
Pleasant Street. Installation of 4 feet screening fence.
Hello, George.
Hello. I can share my screen if you wish,
Oh,
or
good.
now that you've learned, either way works for me. Yeah.
You do it, George.
All right, here we go. Oh, you have disabled the participant screen
Oh,
sharing.
bummer. Let me see. Participants, wait a minute. Hold on. Share screen. Okay.
All right, let's see what happens. Pressing buttons now. Everybody should be now looking at the certificate of appropriateness, the application for a certificate.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you for your time tonight. This is a project that's been ongoing for about 2 years now, and I think that the screening fence was the one thing that we needed to come back to this group with. The house is almost complete. There's 3 units if you can imagine, as there was before. And this application is to put in the installation of a 4-foot screening fence with a concealed gate at the utility meters, which is fronting on Pleasant Street, and then the installation of a screening and safety fence on the side elevation, which is considered Pleasant Way. Our intent is to paint the fence the same as the matching trim of the house and the balustrades on the porch, which is HC27 Monterey White, Benjamin Moore. The next page is a couple of images of where the fence would be. This is sort of an image looking down Pleasant Street. The high school would be to our left at this point. And we relocated, and of course, the bushes and shrubberies are renditions. We are currently looking at boxberries and inkberries, a number of different bushes that will fill in there. But originally, I'll just quickly switch, on that front elevation was relatively unsightly electric meters and a gas meter. What we did as part of this construction is we moved those around the corner so that they're on the side here. We also relocated the electric service, which had the Cobra head literally right here facing that street, and we tucked them around the corner. What we would like to do here, and we're using a precedent that is located at 23 Pond Street, which is just across the street from the Cottage Funeral Home, similar fence, where we would put a 4-foot screening fence here to sort of, get rid of looking at those side meters. And the location here would be a gate so that if anybody needed to read the meters or get to the meters, albeit they do that now pretty much remotely, they'd be able to do that. The gate would swing in, so most of the hardware would be invisible, from the Pleasant Street view. On the Pleasant Way view, this is the new porch, and if you recall, we reoriented the stairs and put in the brick and granite walk here. There's a large retaining wall that existed. It's about 5 feet high that drops off the back here, and then as you traverse down Pleasant Way, the height of that retaining wall lessens, but we would still, by code, have to provide some level of protection. Anything over 30 inches above grade requires something that's of guardrail height, which is by code 42 inches high. This screening fence happens to be what matches up the street, and it is 4 feet high here. There'll be a transition piece, and I can show you a sketch that we got from Perfection Fence about how they would like to treat the transition so we can keep this corner safe. But then that would extend down Pleasant Way to the point where it was no longer needed by code. And then again, we're looking at planting, not necessarily part of this review, but the idea would be we'd put some type of boxberry, something that would ultimately grow to between 2.5 to 3 feet high and 2.5 to 3 feet wide, so that there'd be even more privacy. The fence itself is, again, this is the fence that was located up the street at 23 Pond Street, actually on the corner. But we like to try to pick precedents that are already available in the neighborhood. As you know, there's a number of different styles, but this was manufactured by Perfection Fence. We're under contract with Perfection Fence and paid deposits so that we could get in line. They know that they can't do anything, of course, until we leave tonight's hearing with any comments or an approval for that. And then at the end of the day, this is just, what we ultimately moved around the corner. Obviously, the meters that are around the corner now on this side are newer, but nevertheless, nobody really wants to look at electric and gas meters if we can hide them. Again, our intent is to paint the fence the same color of the trim so that it will match the balustrade and the trim here. It's all custom built by Perfection Fence. I can give you a review quickly of the contract that we have. Again, it's about 45 linear feet, give or take, of Nantucket style cedar fencing with a slotted beveled cant strip. So this is consistent with, it's the same fence essentially that's up the street. And again, on the right side, the idea would be a 4-foot tall Nantucket style cedar fence, custom painted to screen that. I had mentioned before, there's a slight transition that Perfection Fence has helped us out with, and that is between the high section of wall. Again, this to grade is about a little over 5'3". So obviously we have a horizontal piece of fence that runs perpendicular to the house out to the corner. We plan on running this straight across so that this level again has the appearance of 4 feet. And then there's about a 2'3" to be exact, drop between the higher wall and the lower wall. The idea is that this 6-foot post would be concealed behind that wall, but then give us a transition to maintain, the minimum requirement for safety until, again, we get back to the 4-foot high section of fences, which will then march down Pleasant Way. And again, this is just right out of their proposal. Again, this is just another copy of the fence. Their precedent of the Nantucket style picket fence.
George,
Yes,
this is solid wood.
that is correct. It's cedar.
No part of anything is anything but wood.
Absolutely not.
Thank you.
I wouldn't be able to sleep with myself. So it's custom painted. It'll be painted in the shop. So we can manage the quality of that. And they can install this. They install pretty much any time of the year, provided we don't have 3 feet of frost. And I think if we have that, we probably have other issues going on, but that is correct.
Can I ask another funny question? It's this application's under the name of Margaret Rando
That's correct.
Trust. Is Margaret an actual living person, or is that the name of the trust?
Nope. Margaret both of the Randos are deceased. Many of you probably got your hair cut if you were a male by Mr. Rando. He lived around the corner. So they left the house to their sons and they formed this trust.
So who's the individual we go to if there's a problem?
His name would be Andy Rando.
And is he in Hingham?
He actually lives in Weymouth.
Okay, would you make sure that Andrea has the way to reach him?
I think we have, I'm sorry, George, I think we have his email address right here.
His
Is that
email
correct?
address and his telephone number is right here.
Okay, thank
But
you.
we can make sure
Okay.
that that's clear.
I've got it.
now-
Thank you, Carol.
I'd also like to point out that the posts carry a 30-year warranty that's transferable, so we don't expect to certainly be around in 30 years to worry about posts, but we'll know they'll live in perpetuity, at least for a little bit into the future.
Any comments, or does everyone feel comfortable? We can make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion for a certificate of appropriateness for 5 Pleasant Street, dated October 26th, for the installation of a 4-foot screening fence with concealed gate at utility meters in the front, and installation of a screening safety fence on the side elevation, Pleasant Way. Fence will be painted to match trim and porch balustrade.
Is there a second?
Second,
Right. Carol, how do you vote?
aye.
Justin?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
And it's an aye for me. Motion passes.
And may I say, this is huge improvement. I
Oh, yeah.
remember what this looks like when you first came to us.
Yeah, it wasn't
I was
hard to
waiting for someone
improve.
to say that.
Wonderful change.
Thank you. Everybody worked hard, including Andrea. We've spent a lot of hours together to make sure this came out right. So thank you very much for
Really
your
great.
time.
Well,
done.
can I just add that George was part of the architectural team for the new Foster School?
Oh, really?
Yes.
For you.
That would be considered my day job, yes.
Yeah,
So-
and also, if you remember, George did the plans for 73 North Street.
On the
And
corner
that
of
was,
North and Ship.
that was huge.
So, thank you. Thank you for your time tonight. And we appreciate all of the input we've had over the period of time this project's taken to get done.
Thank
All
you.
right, this is great.
Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
You too. Happy
Thank you.
All right,
Thanksgiving.
thank you.
Good night now.
All right. Next is 721 Main Street. Stephen and Deborah Hines. I see Stephen here.
And Susan Hoadley,
Yep, is Susan on? Oh, there she is.
there
Perfect.
she is. Hi, Susan.
Is that
Hello.
my neighbor? Hi, Stephen.
Hello, Carol, how are you?
Fine. Nice to finally meet you.
Well, I know, I apologize. Don't feel like we've abandoned you. We've only been in the house about a hot minute.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you. I've been waving to Tom a lot.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. My wife, Deb, and I are owners of 721 Main Street. She's just getting off a plane, so I think it looks like she's on via phone, but can't join via Zoom. And I'm joined by Susan Hoadley and Karina Martinez, our architects, and also Nino DeNuno, who's our remodeler, who's on here as well. So I think most of you know the home. Susan, if you want to put up a picture, I think, Susan, you can drive, can't you? Oh,
Yeah, she, much better than I can.
well, I wasn't implying that, Andrea.
That's all
I
right.
knew I couldn't, so I assumed
You
she.
know, I lay it out there.
The whole house, that's what he wants.
Do you have a picture of the front of the house? Okay. So anyways, most of you know the home, the Andrew Cushing house, about 160-year-old home. And we came before the board back in May for work we were doing, which was largely internal, but touched on some outside areas. And I'm not good at directions. I'm a New Englander. I use landmarks, but the west, the back of the home facing Cushing Pond, which was approved, and we're well underway on that. And so just to catch you up on where we are on that, we own the home about a year, almost exactly to the day. As I just referenced to Carol, we've really only been in a week or two. We sort of used Halloween as our coming out party to at least to the under 12 set. I'm told that candy had not been given out from this home for multiple generations. So we were overwhelmed with response from kids who wanted to see if the house was in fact haunted, which it is not. We're pleased to report. So we've undertaken a pretty big program. We've at this point done the electric in the home, the plumbing, all of the systems. And that's taken us, a solid year. And I think it'll please a lot of folks on the call that we've also been able to liberate a lot of the original floors in the home from underneath some pretty awful carpeting and bring them up and rejuvenate them. So things are looking pretty good for what we've talked to you about and what we've been doing internally. And the next phase of work involves the portion of the house which goes off to the south, to the left of the screen as you're looking at it, which folks call the L. So I'll refer to it as the L. If you were on the call in April, materials for that call contained a pretty robust history of the home. It's not in your materials here. I'm sure Andrea can get it to you if you don't have it. But in that narrative, there was a lot of discussion about how the home has evolved. The L, no one's exactly sure if the L was original to the home in the 1860s or 1870s, but we have photographic evidence that it was there in about 1900, 1910. And over time through narratives, Susan, why don't you stay on the original first? Through narratives and photographic evidence, it has appeared to have been a greenhouse or a hothouse. We believe it was then a stable. And then at some point in the 30s, according to history, the fairly prominent barn on the property to the right of the home burned down, which presumably necessitated a need for garaging for vehicles. So permits were pulled to make the L into a garage with a front driveway. And we have blueprints and the permits for that for reasons unknown to us. That work was never performed. And so I think the L then sat for a while. And then at some point in the 70s, 60s, 50s, 70s, it was formally incorporated into the home internally. But never, frankly, much was done with it. And I think we all agree, internally and externally, it sort of doesn't represent the grandeur of the home itself. It's just sort of a thumb sticking out that's always been there, but has neglected the care that the home has received. So Susan, if you can zone in on the L that we're describing, or if you can go to that other picture you had up. Yeah. The L at this point is almost totally obscured, and candidly, that's not a bad thing, right? It's got 30, 40, 50-year overgrowth of rhododendrons and evergreen, but it it lacks the character of the rest of the home. So we're here tonight to offer you our latest thinking on what we'd like to do with it, to bring it back and sort of match the character of the home. We've spent a lot of time thinking about what to do with this space. Internally, we'll just turn it into living space, family space. But we've come up with some pretty good ideas, we think, about how to make it externally more attractive to the east, to Main Street. So with that background, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But with that history of 120-year existence as a hothouse and as a stable and as well, by the way, now somewhere in the 70s or more so, or 80s, apparently there was a need to have a music studio in the home. So internally, it is a room with very heavy padding on it to buffer sounds made by drum kits and other things. And we are not currently in need of a sound studio in our home, so we're going to take care of that. But we want to restore the outside of the.
So this was Aerosmith.
Yeah, well, I wish I had a good story other than we were just left with foam padding and space without character. But I'd love to tear the foam padding off and find a bunch of autographs in history, but I doubt I will. But with that as the sort of background and flavor, I'd like to turn it over to Susan, who will take you through our ideas and what we'd like to do with the space.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Susan Hoadley with Hoadley Martinez Architects. It's great to see all of you here tonight. We have been, this is the second time we come before you for a certificate of appropriateness. The last one was for the first round of work that Steve described. And this, as Steve just outlined so articulately, is really turning our attention to the work that is going to be done in the back of the house, as well as some adjustments that are to be made to this L or stable extension, which, as Steve described, is just sort of this thumb that comes out from the grandeur of the grand manor massing of the main part of the house. So the question of what to do with this extension, I think, is something that has nagged. If you go through the historical record, this has been a challenge for almost every incarnation of ownership in this house. As we know, it started as a stable, but as Steve said, there was a building permit pulled and registered in Hingham Town Hall that describes a 2-car garage, which was a logical extension of what was most likely a 2-bay stable. And that building permit actually gives us some cues for the proposal that we're going to bring to you. But what I'd like to do now is to start on a site plan and just remind everyone that the views that are taken and that you will be considering tonight as part of being in the view shed are largely behind a lot of overgrowth right now. So it's very, very difficult to describe the existing conditions photographically, but perhaps we should go to the elevation of the existing conditions as well as what we're proposing. This is the existing condition as it is now. It basically doesn't have anything to do with any historic reference. It was just what they needed to make the recording studio work. It's also been ornamented by the same corbels that you see on the main part of the building. And what we are suggesting to do in the incorporation of new rooms inside is to propose the 2-bay expression that occurred to the architect in the 50s that was referring back to the stable. And the reason that we're doing that is we need windows in that part of the L. But we also don't want to compete with the massing of the main part of the building. We want it to stay very, very recessive. And at the same time, we would like to get rid of the overgrowth. It's a very unplanned assemblage of vegetation that's in front of the building. It has to come down. And when it does, we were careful to consider what you're left with. And what we are proposing here is something we think is subservient to the main mass of the house. It adds a measure of articulation that's in keeping with the main mass of the house. And it accommodates what we are proposing in the back, which I will now describe. At the top of the drawing where the cursor is now is really, in addition to three dormers, the only real massing change that we are proposing is only that parapet, the extension of the chimney, which is a code issue, and the addition of the three dormers. The three dormers would exactly match the dormers and all the details that are in the main part of the house, the details of the corbels and all of the window surrounds would match the existing house, and it would also match the corbel expression that is there now. So to describe what the reason for the dormers and the 2-foot parapet, I would like to go to the back of the house and show you what's happening there. As you can see, there is going to be a new addition for a guest room on the back, and the expansion of the house into a logical extension of first floor rooms, so that as people get older, they don't have to use the steep stairs that go up to the second and third floor. The extension that you see resulting above a master bathroom extension is the parapet that you would see from the main view shed on Main Street. So if we could go to the plan right now, you can see, well, let's go to the roof plan. If you go to the roof plan, then you can see that really the only additional massing that we've added are the dormers on the roof and the subject area in the back that is not part of the historic review. And to that, there's a lot I could say about this house. We've been knee deep in researching it, and this design and construction team is intimately acquainted with its history. I could go on about this forever, but would probably be better suited to addressing specific questions that the commission has at this point.
Does anyone want to start? Catherine? You still getting your thoughts together?
I just have one question. I see that the, I guess are you calling it a parapet? Parapet, thank you.
Yes.
On the rear is quite, how high is that above the ridge line of the existing L?
2 feet, 24 inches.
And it's to house the bathroom, the primary suite bathtub?
Yeah, this is a very tricky problem. In order to get usable area up there, you have to expand the ridge line in some capacity, because it's an almost unusable, very long finished room that basically just uses energy to heat right now. And so what we did was, in order to get a usable master bathroom up there, we chose that part of the elevation to be the part that we raise up, because it's so recessed from the slant back of the roof. We thought that it would be very, very inconspicuous.
Yeah, when you look at the aerials, Catherine, that's actually a massive shed dormer on the backside.
Yeah,
That's why it has the low head height there.
yeah. I'm just wondering if it needs to be quite so tall. And I have two lines of thinking. In some ways, it bridges the larger mass of the main body of the home to the lower elevation of the garage. But in other ways, I think maybe it's too high. So I'd be interested in what the other commission members think.
Eric, do you have any questions or comments?
Just to piggyback off Catherine's comment, I think I'm in agreement. It'd be ideal if you couldn't see it, right? Like if it wasn't there and the ceiling heights worked, would probably feel a little more resolved in my sense, but I don't find it necessarily offensive in any way and how it's set back. And, you know, I'm by no means an expert in this style home. So, but the ornament of this style home, it seems a little appropriate for me as far as having those different massing and base. So I think I can be comfortable with that, understanding the challenges of that second floor there. I'm trying to get a sense of, I lean towards the sort of faux stable doors I go back and forth on. I'm generally not as much of a fan of mimicking a door that's not a door. But again, I think it's done very nicely. I think it's detailed while using the existing home details. So again, I feel like I'm back and forth on really if that's, you know, anything that I feel like is a problem in my mind either. So again, would like to hear other commissioners' opinion on that. You know, overall, I think it has been thoughtfully done with the existing home styling, which I appreciate.
Dan, go ahead.
I was just we approved, I think it may have been before Eric was on the commission. I forget the number, but we approved one on Fairing Road, the garage, where they did this faux, and they did theirs lower with double hung doors. They finished it recently and actually it works well. It looks pretty good. So you know, just having that experience and seeing it go in, I think that it would work here also.
That's good to hear. So that's kind of nice having that reassurance from someone else.
You have any other questions, Dan?
The only other question was that it looks like the windows that are called out are clad windows. Wasn't sure if that's the intent or.
Go to the cut sheet.
It's on I think it's the last sheet of our application. It's the next tier. It's a durable cladding. It's the G2. So it's the Marvin line of the ultimate double hung, but it's called out as the G2. And then the other comment, I did like that the windows you put on the front elevation. I like that you did 2/2, kind of makes it feel more like it was, you know, an addition shortly after or some other time period. So I think that lends well. I just had hesitation about the cladding.
May I expand on the point that you're making there about the windows? Because I think it's an important one. So if you look at the very, very early original photos of the house, it's 2/2 all around. What you see now, these 1/1s are a recent replacement. And it's my understanding that the Hines do intend to continue their stewardship of the house by replacing the windows in the existing house eventually. And when they do, it's likely that they will propose not these 1/1s, but the more historically appropriate 2/2s. And when that happens, everything will be brought into accord. But this tees you up to be able to do it.
So what about the aluminum clad exterior?
Well, that is what we're proposing, but if you would like to propose something for us to change the spec to, we'd be happy to consider it.
Yeah, the board has kind of a long history of, and I think it's in the guidelines about not using aluminum clad or clad windows. So I think, I'm not going to speak for the rest of the commission members, but I think we'd rather see it, stick with the double hung all wood window.
Okay. Is that the sort of a change that I can resubmit the specification?
We could just make a
In-
note of it
Okay,
in the
be
motion.
happy to.
Mary Ann?
I was totally impressed by the thoughtfulness, both in researching the history and then bringing it forward to the 21st century. I agree with Eric and Dan's perspective on the doors. I don't like faux doors, but I defer to Dan when he said that when he saw the doors in action on Fearing Street, they really looked quite good. So I think it's just very thoughtfully done in obedience to what the house calls for.
Thank you.
Is it confusing though to have these faux doors? I mean, is it kind of
Susan, how far,
visitor to be confused?
Susan, how far back is this elevation from the front elevation of the main house? Looks like
Okay,
it's-
two
it looks like it's a good
questions.
30 feet.
All right, why don't I take Catherine's first, and then Tracy, I'll come back to you with a dimension. So, Catherine, the question is it confusing? So in manor houses, usually the stables were actually located in subservient places to the main manor house, so that it wouldn't be signaling you to drive toward it like it would in a more contemporary landscape. I think it would be clear that that's not actually the driveway in, especially the way that the landscape is arranged, the historic landscape, which would be kept intact. So I appreciate the concern that would sort of create confusion and discordance, that you would be driving a vehicle towards something that's actually not a driveway. But at the same time, it was our intention with this that this would be conveyed more as sort of a carriage house or something of a more formal stable than actually something that would hold cars. So
in the landscape plan, it does look like is the driveway extending in front of those fake doors or not? Is that grass?
So the driveway doesn't extend toward the panel expression.
Okay.
It's about it doesn't.
That's a grassy area that I'm seeing on that.
It is. And
Okay.
and it's my understanding that the Hines would maintain a certain amount of foliage in there. Just not the overgrown, unintentional bramble that's in there now. And then Tracy, back to your question, the facade is about 55 feet.
Yeah, it looked like it was pretty far
Setback.
back there.
Yeah.
Carol, I saw that on the site plan too. It looked like there was a driveway going back there, but I think it's just the way the grading lines are shown on that.
That was
site.
Catherine, that wasn't Carol.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
That's it.
There's a cloud, a drawing cloud that seemingly looks like a curb, but it's not.
And we have, I can speak as the owner, we have no intention of putting a driveway beyond where it is now. Currently, what you may be seeing, I don't know exactly the drawing you're referring to, but there's a fairly imperceptible flagstone or fieldstone walkway that curves up towards that L from the driveway. We would maintain that, and then once the overgrown, the growth is gone, given the doors and given the somewhat shaded nature of the area with the tree lines on the property line, put in some low profile native, hydrangea and azalea, hosta, et cetera. There's actually, for what it's worth to the board, there's something in front of the L, which appears to us to be potentially a trough when it was a stable. They call it, a water feature of some kind. I don't think original, but yeah, right where that is. Once we get that very leggy rhododendron growth out of there, which has grown through a lot of the fieldstone used to create it, we'll do our best to try to feature that as part of the landscape that goes back in with plantings around it. I think it looked quite nice underneath those doors.
Carol, do you have any comments, questions?
I'm not supposed to speak, right?
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
But thanks for thinking of me.
Yeah.
And I am bursting to say
Inclusive.
something.
Tracy, I had a couple follow-ups.
Sure.
You're calling it the parapet, the face, the material that we're seeing from the road, it looks like I can't tell if that's just like a brick hatch or something. Can you clarify what that face is below the trim work? And will there be on the chimney, just wondering if there's gonna be like a chimney cap or if it's just gonna be left open?
So right now, we're not proposing a chimney cap. It's just a simple, it'll be a simple extension of what's there now. There is a sort of I don't even know what the term for that sort of swelled expression at the top of the existing chimney is, but it's assumed that we would just continue it up straight, probably correcting that sort of bulge in the top of the chimney.
Yeah,
But no chimney cap.
It's corbelled
And-
brick at the top.
Right. Yeah, that's the term. And then the exterior cladding on the parapet is shingles, just to blend in with the vertical slate shingles that occur on the side of the dormers on the rest of the house, which is an original treatment.
There's gonna be slate shingles, to clarify.
Yeah, just like you have on the sides of all the dormers.
Okay, thank you.
Just one follow-up, that all the existing chimneys have caps on them, metal caps on them right now.
You have to.
If you want to just take the one off, is that where you're going for, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, it looked like an old cheap cap that's on
The metal cap?
I guess.
Yeah, we'll reuse that.
Gotcha.
Josh, do you have any questions, comments?
Just to clarify, it looks like on the schematic, it looks like that that's all on one plane. Nothing is changing, but on the elevation, it looks like the corbels drop down, the dental molding ends. Is the roof line being extended out as well, or what's happening with that condition there?
No, it stays the same. If you look at detail 1, there's a plan section that is cut through the pilaster that do those relative depths. And then and there is enough clearance between that overhang to accommodate being able to go up in there and die up into that.
Okay.
I see what you're describing, Josh, like in the elevation.
Right.
It looks like the existing corbels stop and where it's the red, it's some new detail.
That's right.
Fascia or something. Are the new where the faux stable doors, are those corbels meant to be at the same elevation as to the right bay? Or are they meant to be lower elevation as they're shown here?
They're meant to be a lower elevation to break that up. And because we just trying so hard to break up that sort of relentless long monotony of that long bar. And in the interest of getting your eye back onto the main part of the house.
Yeah, I honestly, just one comment that I don't mind that at all. I think that's actually a nice move that there is a break there. In the plan section, that pilaster, just so everyone's clear, will show a very defined break where that change happens. Just so.
Justin, did I skip you or do you?
Not yet.
Okay.
And I think with the modification of the cladding of the window, I think it's an appropriate application that I'll support.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Wait a minute.
Oh, Carol?
Are there any neighbors or butters who would like to say anything?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah. I just need to correct a few little things that aren't important. One is that Julius Loring is actually Julian Loring, town historian forever and ever and ever. And as someone would move into the neighborhood when he was still alive, he'd show up at your door on day one while you were unpacking with a big book of pictures to tell you all about the history of your house and what was going on. So I've known about the history of this house for a long time because it's right next door. There's somewhere in the write-up, there is a line that says that the art gallery was in there without people living there. And we've been here 50 years, and I can tell you there's always somebody in there. And Pat Pierce was a lovely neighbor who died fairly recently in the last few years. We watched the ambulance leave. And she was in the house all the time. She didn't go anywhere. She ran an art gallery, wrote many wonderful books, and was a terrific lady. And then when she died, her husband, Marco, stayed on long enough to get the house sold and clean up a little bit and get her priceless collection of old antique photographs out of there, paintings out of there. So I just don't want it to say that it was an unoccupied commercial building, because I think there are probably legal, maybe even tax implications about that. The house, we were here when she went before the town and asked to have a business in a residential area, and there was a big fuss, and we thought it was a great idea because she was only allowed to have one car at the house at a time, people visiting. It wasn't like a grocery store with dozens of people coming and going all the time. So it was a good use of a very huge house. The pictures that are shown on A1019 were taken from standing out on Main Street. And then there's like 80 feet of town property, and then you get to the sidewalk in by the houses. And excuse me, and on that page, our house is shown in number 1 with a gallery next to us. And then the next picture, again, taken from way out on the street somewhere, doesn't show what it really looks like. We do see the side of that house. And I should tell you that the L has an old section that goes way, way back. I don't know. The oldest picture I have of it is 1917. But then later on, there was an addition put on the back of it. And if you're standing in my kitchen and looking right out at them, you can see the difference in the foundation. There's the wonderful old capstones for the first, section of the house. And then the slanted section in the backyard was added sometime after that with a modern foundation. And so it's not as old as the rest. Having said all of that, I have absolutely no objections to this. As I said at the last meeting, we're so excited to have a family next door that will take care of the house and fix it and all that. And what you're seeing from the street picture, like in number 2, is our giant ancient boxwood. It's about 20 feet tall. It was 15 feet tall when we bought the house 50 years ago. It's falling apart and dying back. So you can't count on that being there to block the view from the sidewalk. You do see the whole side of the house. And then 20 years ago, we put in an arborvitae hedge, and we chose a kind called, believe it or not, Black American, beautiful type, but it only goes to about 8 feet tall. And so for the last decade, it has been full grown at 8 feet. When this addition goes on, it will take basically a 1-story addition on the back of the L and lift it up to be a 2-story addition with another window in it and so forth. So, I'll be sitting in my kitchen looking straight at it. And our plan is not to discourage our neighbors, because I think it's a really wonderful use of that space. It's kind of wasted space now. And as I said at one of our other meetings, Pat made it into a music room, soundproof music room for one of her kids or one of her husbands. I don't know which one it was.
So
but-
not Aerosmith,
So what, not Aerosmith? I'm
not
sorry. about that.
Aerosmith. right.
No, but as I said before, the bad news was it was not soundproof at all. And the good news was whoever the guitar player was, she was fabulous. And we loved having concerts in our backyard in the summertime, listening to them. So we will take out our hedge and probably the big boxwood, because as I said, it's dying anyway. And we'll put in a different hedge out of a variety of arborvitae that grows to more like 15 or 20 feet. So eventually we won't see this addition at all. And I think it's really well designed. As I'm gardening in the back, I'm going to look at the back of the house and think that's a wonderful addition and takes care of a lot of sort of confusing things that were going on in the back of the house. Now it's going to be beautiful. And you'll have a lot of nice new space. My only concern, based on years on the committee, is that we basically don't normally approve faux exterior looks. We've said no to faux chimneys. We've said no to faux walls that weren't the stone we thought they were, to a lot of things. My eye says that the drawing of the L with the two faux barn doors, I guess, is what you call them, between the pilasters, which don't appear any other place in the addition, the transom windows, which are new to the addition. I think the dormers above are fine. I don't see any in the house that I walked around today and looking at them that have that sort of diamond shape on top, that arch on top, but I don't think that's terribly important. But I think that'll give you a nice light on that second floor. But I think to put pretend doors on the front without a driveway leading up to them is a distraction from the gorgeous main house. I wouldn't do anything that would take your eye away from the big mass in the front, which is so unusual, so beautiful. In the 50 years we've been here, we've probably seen 100 people sitting out front with paint and easel, making paintings of this house. It's just really special and gorgeous and so well proportioned and perfectly thought through. I wish it still had the cupola on top, because I've seen pictures of it and it was like 4 feet by 4 feet. It was gorgeous. But, maybe it was leaking and somebody took it down. But I don't want to tell you what to put on the front of the L, but I think that just doesn't make sense. The people who had enough money to build this Manson house wouldn't have had horses next door. Whoever came up with that idea, I just don't understand. They had a huge barn until it burned down in the 30s. By then they had cars. They didn't have smelly horses, but to have put horses in there, just, you could never convince me that ever happened. They would make the house smell bad. Cars maybe, but I think they would have gone back the driveway that runs along the sort of the right side of the house and to the back where there's lots of parking. And if they did ever use the original old L as a place to put cars, I think they would have gone in from the back. I don't think they would have headed in from the front.
Hey, Miss Carol.
What do I know?
No, you know a lot. And
Well,
your comments are extremely helpful. Don't forget, you're in a butter. So we just have.
But these are my abutter up in.
I know. Love you dearly, but we just need to, I think, move on. But you've been very helpful in terms of the history of this house. I mean, knowing the residents for so many years. So thank you, Miss Carol.
All right, if there's no one else, does anyone want to make a motion?
Make a motion for a certificate of appropriateness for 721 Main Street located in the Glad Tidings Local Historic District. Per the plans dated 27 October 2022, work to include on the east elevation. East elevation. Installation of 2 faux garage doors, 3 dormers, A single window,
cut sheet.
extending the chimney 2 feet up, and the addition of a parapet on the west elevation. Windows to be all wood Marvin double hung windows.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Justin, how do you vote?
Vote aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
Catherine?
I'm afraid I'm going to vote no. The faux doors, I would love to see another study on the faux doors, another option. It's a no for me.
All right. And it's an aye for me, so motion passes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hines. Thank you.
Thank you,
Suzette.
everyone. Thank you for your input and your very
We
thoughtful
appreciate it.
consideration. Thank
The
you.
commission.
Okay.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda, 66 Lincoln Street. I see Meredith.
Yes,
It's
that's me.
Meredith.
And Chris. So we had a whole plan to have the kids in bed, and we got locked out about an hour and a half ago from our Airbnb. So I apologize to everyone for potential kids in the background as we're
We
in the
get
routine.
it. Don't worry.
So because of the lockout and everything, I've been jumping on and off. So did you want me to just kind of go over what we have submitted? I can't share the screen because our laptop is inside the Airbnb. So I don't know if you're able to share it.
Oh,
And-
yes. I'll give it a whirl.
I'm so sorry.
Not a problem. So just,
Very
get
exciting hearing, right?
Yeah. We
yeah.
got a month-old, and we gave our daughter some cocoa melon, so hopefully.
So you can get started because they do have hard copies.
Okay, perfect.
And then I will fiddle around and get the other stuff up on the screen.
Okay, perfect. So just from my memory here, we are proposing a portico in the front. I researched a bunch of different houses built in the same era, and they all had this same style portico. So that's what we're proposing on the front. And we're also proposing shutters, obviously screw shutters, wood shutters, with real hardware, real working shutters. And then we're also proposing 2 doors from the 1927 edition that's in the back to the right side. If you walk in like just the right part of Lincoln Street, you can see it from the road. So that's why that's on there, even though it's all the way in the back of the house. And then we're putting we're just extending the patio that's already currently there, or hoping to extend the patio that's currently there. And then on the left side of the house, we are hoping to adjust the fence, keep most of it completely intact, and then just put a driveway through on the left side to the barn.
It's impressive photoshopping too.
Yeah. I'm not an architect. My husband is a builder. I just love design and I love historical homes, and I want to keep it as true to its original state as possible with, with the portico and basically some jewelry for the house, snazz it up a little bit.
Well, just bring its life back, really.
Yeah, bring its life back.
It certainly seems tired, and we'd like to just restore what once was. Meredith didn't mention the windows, but the windows.
The windows are not functioning.
Not functioning. They were tested. They tested positive for lead paint. They have damage. A lot of the panes are broken. So we've submitted and I've done it in the past. The Marvin. We're working with Midcape on a Marvin Marvin, equal. But, as you know, all Marvin windows are custom made. So
And they also, they all have these storms on them, which I heard somebody else mention earlier. They're not the most attractive looking storms on the planet, so.
not attractive, not even sitting well from a construction standpoint.
Right.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's
You
true.
have something to say, Jackson?
So I've got the site plan up,
All right.
if you want to talk about that.
So the driveway that I was mentioning starts right on that top right corner and goes down. I think I did submit that, like the altered site plan in the application. It should be in there.
Yeah, it's there, it's page 9.
Yeah, it's later. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, that's the current. We're not adjusting anything. We're not, other than the portico extending to the front, but staying within the zoning setbacks. So it would just be a sorry, he's grabbing here. It would just be a 4-foot portico. And Andrea, I'm so sorry, you asked me to send you the dimensions of the windows and I just have completely forgot. We would just match the exact dimensions of the front windows because I think that would look best and true to the history of like that kind of portico. It would match the same as the windows that are already on the house. So the narrow. So I guess I'm like unsure. I guess I'm unsure if you guys have questions for me or if you need me to explain more.
I just want to understand the scope quickly. You're adding a driveway to the barn. You're proposing this portico on the front, and then you're replacing all the windows in the house and the barn with a Marvin?
Yeah,
Yes.
correct.
Is there anything else? Is there?
That's what's there. And then extending the patio in the back. And well, painting's not.
So you're also adding shutters on the front?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. You said the wood shutters, functioning wood shutters.
Functioning wood shutters.
Okay.
I
So-
include hardware in there too.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's start with the committee. I believe that there's a neighbor on that wants to speak. I'll get to you shortly, Gary. Anyone on the committee want to start?
I'll go. I spent some time reading the historic card on this, and there are a couple of things that jumped out at me with the historic card in one of the proposed items, which is the front entrance. In the historic card, it reads the pediment entrance, a sophisticated example. The classic entrance is composed of richly molded Greek pediment enriched with 2 rows of dentils with which tops an entablature and pilasters with thin footing. It's unlike any other Hingham 18th century pediment entrance. It could be an elegant colonial revival addition. The residence has been, and then it talks about how goes on, but it jumped out at me is that it seems to be a very defining feature, and I'm hesitant to change it from where it's at right now to what I see on A2 is a pretty significant change. Front massing, not really probably sticking true to what the original construction or intent is. Additionally, the era of the house, I have some hesitation with putting shutters on a building that probably wouldn't have had them. And so I do have that hesitation. Plus, looking at it, it's some of these windows are pretty close. I'm not sure how well they're going to fit if they're going to end up being really narrow shutters. See, some of these windows are close together. And then I was just looking for clarification on, and maybe I missed this when you said it, Tracy, is which windows were being replaced? Just the 2 in the barn?
So all of the windows for the entire house, including 2 at the barn.
Okay.
Of the portico specifically, I also read that information on the history of the house, and our plan is to completely preserve that and just move it forward onto the portico in the front. In terms of the shutters, the width of the windows split in half so that they are functioning shutters. That's what the elevation is showing. So you can actually see exactly where those shutters would be. Yes, it's a narrow window, so there are narrow shutters because it's a narrow window, but that will look correct. And also we found the original shutters in the barn. So it looks like there were shutters on the house at some point. I'm not sure when, but there's
I paused to use the word original when saying original shutters from 1737. But the other comment I had regarding the windows then is what's submitted is not a full true wood window. It's a I can't remember off the top of my head what this. It's a composite material exterior finish. Which kind of goes to our comments that we had on our previous agenda item about not using a clad component. So those are my first comments. And then, I think I would want to see the windows, especially for the front elevation in person, or do a survey or something, and see better conditions before feeling comfortable to do a wholesale replacement. So those are my overarching questions.
Okay, yeah, no, those are all reasonable questions, and happy to walk through them or explain them in any more detail. Yeah.
Justin, do you have any questions?
I think those are fairly significant items to address before we can make a decision.
Thank you. Josh?
I agree. I'd say, in addition, the windows on this house, I think, are very much a character defining feature. I think I think I saw a photo, I think there's 16/16 windows, which is, very, very uncommon to see something like that still around. That's an example. That's not the house. That's those are 12/12s. But so I think that's, the windows are super important. Would want to make absolutely sure that those can't be, restored before, arguing for replacement. I bet not, 90% of the houses in Hingham probably have, lead paint. So that's not necessarily a, something that can't be remediated. On the window hardware, I saw that aluminum was specified. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just nodding to say, yeah, certainly lead could be remediated, but like the sash weights are missing. Some of the original hardware is gone. They just don't function. Some of them, as I said, have panes missing. So there'd be, the intent would be to make it look like it is now, and then function.
Sure.
So same light, same number of lights over same number of lights. Like we would have them custom made to match exactly what's already there.
Pattern, yeah.
Sure. And that might be something we wanted to do. You would want to do a site visit on to take a look at. But on the not all wood shutters are created equal. And I would say, I would echo Dan's comments that probably originally this house wouldn't have had shutters. It may have had some added at some later point, but the ones I think that were specified had really thick stiles, thick top and bottom rails. And it's not necessarily something that would be, I think, super appropriate for this house. And I agree with Dan again. The pediment on the front of the house, definitely not original to the house, but character defining at this point, and probably needs to stay on the same plane as the front of the house.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was the question, whether or not we could just move that plane forward, but I understood.
Yeah, and just to share, I guess the other thing is, that jumped out at me, my last comment is that this is really one of the most iconic houses in this district. So apologies if we seem to be overly sensitive to it, but it is definitely a very special home within the district.
Yeah, and we've come to learn that just in gathering our research, and so we share the same sentiment, and just kind of continue in the spirit of I guess reviving it, or bringing it back to its original quality with improving that functionality. But no, we hear you. No, we know we've heard all about the late night parties or dances in the back of the house. So I know there's some history there.
Carol?
Yeah, I really, my instinct is to say a site visit. There are people on the commission that know old windows better than the rest of us. And if we can save any of them, if repairing them would be too prohibitive, I just would love to come see it and take a look at each window and work out a plan for each one.
Sure. Catherine?
I'm in agreement with most of the commission. This is a beautiful example of an intact early 1700s colonial. It's spare, it's unadorned, and that style is typical of the era. It really holds a beautiful kind of austere simplicity that I think should be honored and valued. And I do think some of the proposed changes would change that to alter it. I'd say I have the brackets on the garage. It looks like in the rendering, there's one style, and in the photograph, there's another. So I'd want clarity on that. I think, did Andrea talk to you about historic paint colors and how those, so I'm not sure if that paint choice was a historic paint choice.
From what I have, I got the list, and then I also matched it to the same era, and those colors were all from that era.
Okay.
From the brochure that I have.
Yeah. Thank you. And then I'd really like to see a full window schedule. We're really working, our job is to preserve and restore rather than replace. And so we want a full detailed schedule with pictures and details, and a site-based visit would be great in addition to that. And then, as I recall, Andrea, the barn was moved, and there was a big hoopla about moving that barn in that historic district. And I guess I just want to understand the circumstance, where it was, and what impact putting a driveway in front of it would have. So that was I was thinking about.
Sorry, didn't mean to.
I'm just going through my little list here.
Okay. Well, I can address the barn thing. And I'm sorry, you said barn brackets. I wasn't sure what you meant about that.
The brackets, the garage brackets over the little roof line over the.
You have it listed as C1.
Oh, I'm sorry. So that's that's not in the barn. That's the garage on the 1960s edition on the other side. So the barn was to the left and back farther, and the original driveway went to it. So they moved the barn. So now there's no driveway to it, so that they could extend their driveway back to the new house that they built behind the house. So when they moved it, they didn't put a new driveway into the barn.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you for that. And then I guess that's it. So just, after referring to the Secretary of the Interior standards and guidelines, I'm reminded that our charge is, as a commission, is to preserve a building's character, defining architectural materials and features, and second, make possible an efficient contemporary use. So I just wanted to remind the commission of that. Thank you.
Eric, did I call on you yet? You're on mute.
Not yet. I'll make it quick. Agree with basically most of the comments from everyone else here. I think there's a number of items we haven't even discussed that I don't know if we should go through the list and the description of work to make sure everyone's
where.
Yeah, I noticed the fence. I was gonna bring up the fence. It looks like
Yeah, it
there's a
might be
fence
worth
going
just,
across
there's
the
some things
driveway.
like the business signs, for example, if we can, just so they at least have a direction on all the items, I think would be helpful for them. It's really a lovely home. Thank you for, stewards of it. We really do appreciate it. This process can be educational and challenging and all of the above, but we do appreciate the effort. So I think there's a lot, maybe it's worth just going through to make sure we capture everything. We can give them direction on the stuff we haven't talked about.
Yep, go ahead. Did you want to add anything or?
I was just running through the list, like we didn't talk about the 2 set of French doors, the right elevation. Just the flower boxes, the business signs, all those items I don't think we touched upon. I don't know if it's worth going through the list or those are the ones.
I think you should go through it. Because I think that's important for the applicants to know as they're moving forward.
Tracy, do you want to do that or do you want me to run through it?
Sure. I mean, I noticed the application's a little difficult to go through, to be honest. So I don't even know about the flower boxes or the French doors. I noticed the fence being proposed. It looks like across the existing driveway with a big gate.
I think the easiest is there's a description of work on the 3rd page. I think that lists everything out pretty nicely, at least. I don't know if everyone's gone through that yet, but.
Yeah, I think, Eric, I agree with you. If you could just run down the list and mention the things that we haven't touched on.
Yep. So they broke it apart by the additions. So the first is the 1737 original house. The custom wood shutters we discussed to match originals found in barn. Next is the enclosed portico, which we discussed, and they had mentioned they would be preserving the existing detail but pulling it out. Next is paint existing lap siding and trim jewel white with meeting house blue shutters. Then replace double hung windows we talked about, and that's throughout the house. Just one follow-up comment on that color is meeting house blue is a period color, but it's listed under interior only, not the exterior colors for the period. So that just may be one thing to consider.
Okay.
Next is the 1927 Great Room Edition comments. Add the 2 sets of French doors to the right elevation. I don't know if we want to look at that after. And then the next is replace all the windows as we discussed. The 1960s edition, add the overhang over the double garage doors on the right, which we discussed. And then add meeting house blue painted wood flower boxes under existing windows, which we haven't discussed, the flower boxes. My commentary is I welcome the flower boxes, the color, I guess we could discuss. And again, paint garage doors blue. The barn, replace the windows, we discussed that. Paint the barn, the meeting house blue again, so they're being consistent with the colors around, but maybe that's the discussion point. And then they are adding a barn light over the existing light block. So in the elevation, you can see there's a light block, but there's no light. And then they want to add another one on the other side to match. And then we have hardscape. We discussed the driveway to the left of the house towards the barn. And they have some details on there on the detail of the barn, of the driveway. And then extend existing exterior bluestone patio and fieldstone. I saw there, I'm not sure the scope or extent of that patio. I don't know if that's worth discussing, but if it's behind the house, if we can't see it, I don't know if it's anything we can comment on. And add a wood fence from the right of the house to the right property line. And then the last 2 items were the business signs. They'd be temporary only during construction or during restorations, and they'd be wood framed and have an example in a little sketch in the back. Yeah, so temporary ones aren't under our purview.
Well, if I can just say something there, I think any signs that are put up, temporary or not, have to conform to the sign bylaw. So I think what you'd have to do there is check in with the zoning board. And I don't think you're allowed more than one.
Okay.
And they have to be certain size.
Right.
Okay.
but that's all zoning. That's not our purview.
That's all.
It doesn't
No,
have to go
right,
on.
that's all zoning, but
Yeah.
we can't approve anything that's,
Right.
um,
Well, that's what I was saying. I don't
consistent.
think it would be on our app, it doesn't need to be on this application. It's temporary. Yeah.
Okay.
and may I go back to Eric's comment about the Meeting House blue? It is actually, you're sort of right. The Meeting House blue is an exterior color. However, it is not a color that was used on shutters or doors. There are specific colors that are appropriate for those architectural features. So the Meeting House blue would not work in this case.
Okay. So it
Andrea,
would,
do you have a list of colors that can be provided to them as far as?
Of course.
So maybe a site visit to check out the impact of the French doors and look at the windows and get a sense for what we're dealing with, the fencing, all those items we can. check
Yeah,
out.
I think we should have a site visit.
Okay.
We can't, provide feedback at the site visit. So, we've made comments on the shutters, on the portico, on the paint color, on the windows.
Window schedule.
Yeah, so we would come out and generally and give a general look at the windows, but it would be up to you to provide a survey of the windows. That's not something that we would do. And as Catherine mentioned, we're looking to restore as much as possible. The French doors, I think we need some drawings. I don't know where these French doors are to the right elevation. I don't know what right elevation is.
yeah. They're shown on the,
So that's something that you can point out when we're there, but I'm not sure we can give any feedback on that because I don't know where they are. The overhang, there's just a photo of a similar project. Paint, barn windows, paint, the light.
The light is very contemporary. I would say that Andrea can recommend some period lights that would be appropriate.
okay.
We've made some comment, expressed some concern about the second driveway. I also think it looks really close to the neighbor's driveway. So that's not our, I don't know if that's our purview, but I don't know if they would allow two cuts that close together. Extend the patio in the back, understand. And then the wood fence, this little green line, it looks like it's right on the corner of the house. I think we'd want to kind of look at that at the site visit. Generally, anything we prefer to be set back a little bit, even if it's only 2 feet or so.
And there's an existing fence there, isn't there? Or no, not anymore?
Yes, there is an existing fence along the front. So it would be like extending that further to the right.
So those don't seem to line up in the photos because the fence in the front of the house is quite a bit at the street, close to the street. And then this one is off the corner of the house. So we just need some clarity there.
Oh yeah, sorry. So then I was mistaken again. I don't have it in front of me and I put this together. Yes, yes, I know. So it doesn't look like they would connect, but it would be the same style and that wood. I was just trying to do the exact same thing in a more of like a privacy way. Because the fence in the front is just a little, I think it's maybe 2 or 3 feet tall. It's very small.
Tracy, can I make a comment?
Sure. Go ahead, Marianne.
I'm just shocked by the imprecision of the drawings versus what they're going to do. I mean, the samples that they're providing are not of the house, or they're not of the fence, or they're not of the shutter hardware is not appropriate that they give the sample of what shutter hardware would be in a 1737 house. The portico, certainly doesn't belong in a property of that era. And they get a sample of it on a different house. So there's nothing to say for me to see that shows exactly all the elements of this property, like that we have seen in other people who have come before us with architectural drawings. The precision is there, the dimensions are there. Shouldn't that all be done before we even make a site visit to see what they want to do?
So we do have architectural drawings with dimensions on them. But you're right. Yes, we do have like examples of other porticos just to show it from the side. That's why that's not of the original house like that. Again, I'm not an architect.
And we'd be happy to, take this submission and walk through it with the commission or whoever on the commission and just kind of walk you through each of the points, and maybe that'll help bring some clarity.
Yeah, Marianne, I agree. I said that I didn't think the application was complete and it's a little confusing. I didn't see the list on page 3 there for a while till Eric pointed it out. I do think we can still have a site visit just to keep things moving along. And then at the next hearing, I think the application should include revisions based on comments you heard tonight, as well as having, more detailed dimensioned drawing.
Right. And maybe go a little farther in speaking for itself.
I did want to get to Gary. I know he's been waiting patiently. Go ahead, Gary. I can't hear you, Gary. I think you're on mute.
Working? Okay, very good.
There you go.
Gary Tondorf, Dick, 1029 Main Street. I'm a preservation architect and have been on the Historical Commission and the Districts Commission for 6 years each, and have seen quite a few applications. And in looking at the applications, I've seen quite a few very successful restorations and some others that weren't quite as successful. And what I wanted to do is start with, this is a first period house. This house is 1730. It's at the tail end of the first period. The first period houses are post and beam houses, and they're basically derivative of some of the houses in England. And the heavy timber, where you'd see the timber and the plaster. This is a heavy timber frame. All of the windows and doors in this house are part of the structural frame. And so I think what's important is to kind of understand the derivation of where the house started, get to really know the house relative to the salient components of houses at that time architecturally, and then move with that. Typically, a first period house would have been a 3-bay wide house, meaning the center door, the side door, and a chimney, and then the 3 bays, 3 window bays. So if this is clear on the upper portion of this photo, you can see that the original house here was basically 3 bays wide. The chimney was on the left, and you had the 2 window bays on the right, which were the chamber up top and the second floor, and the parlor on the first floor. Everything to the left of that, or the left of the front door, is a subsequent addition. And so I think that sets the stage. One of the things I'd like to have you refer to are some very good reference books. One is The Framed Houses in Massachusetts Bay by Lowell Cumming and Abbott Lowell Cumming. This is probably the Bible of first period architecture in this country. And in it, it's very helpful in terms of explaining the salient vocabulary and form language of these houses and how they came about. Now, these houses typically were built in the agrarian period. Everything was built by hand. Most of the components in the house, like glass, for example, came from England. None of it was made in this country. And so that explains why the pane's very small. This house probably has a lot of the original sash. I was quite friendly with the oilers who lived in this house a while back. He was a lighting designer and quite familiar with the house. The windows in this house are typically, is another really good book, I think, in terms of just information, and it's Historic Deerfield. And it's a portrait of this first period architecture in Deerfield. And I think what it shows, for example, in this photograph here, you can see the small window. And you can see basically it's 3 lights wide, and it could be anywhere from 4 to 6 to 8 tall, or 12. And what it shows is very thin muntins. It also shows that in this period, even though most of the building was of natural, either a milk paint or something or a stain, the color really was a significant portion of the architecture. The facades and the buildings were very simple. So if I were to look at, let's just look at some of the salient components of this period. So let's find a picture here. So if you look at this photograph, even though this was originally built as a center entry 5-bay house, most of the earlier houses were basically 3-bay and 2 windows wide plus a stair hall and the fireplace behind the stair. And what you see in this house is a very simple treatment of the sheer plane facade, horizontal facade, vertical elements set into the facade to give it some architectural character. But what you see is that the entry doorway on these houses was a celebration of the doorway. It was typically a flush or pretty close to flush on the facade, pedimented, could have been pedimented, or it could have been a broken, a split pediment, typically pilastered. But it was basically flat. It did not extend 3-dimensionally as a room. That came about in the second period, which is the Georgian period. And so when I look at, there's another reference book that I think is really helpful on houses of this time, and it's called New England Doorways. And this is an excellent book to basically illustrate the treatment of a doorway. And what one can see in this book is that in order to have a very important entrance statement, it's probably more appropriate to articulate a pilastered entry with a gable than it is to build a room. This would be, working on color and treatment of this facade in terms of the sash and the casings in the doorway, but keeping the original architecture intact can create a very nice excitement and prominence to the front facade, which I hear the applicant is essentially looking to do. And you can see from many houses that were done, I mean, just to go really in an extravagant sense in some of the houses in Deerfield, here's a flush entrance. I'm not saying do it to this detail, but what I'm saying is that the irony is one can create more interest on a facade if one has a beautifully designed pilastered entrance with a portico, and probably more elegant in some respects than a room that you add on and a front entry hall. And I just think that I put that out there as, as a suggestion. The other thing in terms of the windows in this house, the sash are very thin. They're typically 1 inch thick, and there are no weights in these windows. They were never designed with weights. They have a little pin ratchet where you push the pin in and lift the window, and it goes click, click, click. And the top window sash is typically fixed. and the bottom sash is the one that opens. And it's very difficult to put a replacement window in this type of a sash. And I was looking as you were scrolling through the drawings and the details. The replacement window that's proposed is a synthetic material. It's not a composite synthetic material, and it's an inset sash and frame and casing. These won't fit in these windows. They're made for a house that's got a much deeper sash casing. I would basically recommend to the applicant and to the commission, because I have these windows in my house, and I would recommend that you do a full survey as you suggested, but I would basically take a really good look at these windows because they are irreplaceable fabric from the 1700s. And they can be easily restored. They're made out of beautiful wood material. It's original growth. It's not finger jointed pine like you have today. I would really take a good look at saving what's there and taking a really good look at the color, the use of color on this facade to accentuate the architecture and do it in a subtle way that's consistent with this first period. I think I'm over the years and looking at approaches to projects and design and restoration of early colonial houses. It's very easy to put conflicting components on a building like this, which ultimately devalues the building. And one can be very careful to the original intent and the original form language and architecture on these buildings and really make them exciting through treatments of paint, et cetera. Now, relative to the shutters, a lot of the first period houses did not have shutters. A lot of the second period Georgian houses did not have shutters because the casings were very pronounced, and they projected out from the face of the facade 2-3 inches. However, shutters were used on some of these houses, and the distinction is that the shutters that are in the applicant's proposal are 20th century shutters, where the blind portion, the slats, is recessed relative to the frame. In these houses, the slats were projected past the face of the frame. Also, in these first period and second period shutters, you did not typically have a middle cross rail. So you had a top rail, 2 vertical stiles, and a bottom rail. And inset into that frame were diagonal blades, wood blades, and they were typically much thicker than modern shutters, and they projected out from the frame. The reason being is that depth of field is really important in the architecture of the facades of these houses. It's that there are several planes on the front of the house that project from the clapboards. And what they do is they give a emphasis to the design through shade and shadow. There are shadow lines at the bottoms of the clapboards. There are shadow lines where the windows and the casings meet the wall. One can do a plastered entry and have it done very similar. The one that's on the house now is elegant. And if you look at that in the sun in the morning, you will, because it faces east, you will see the shadow line that really brings out the texture and the quality of the architecture. So my recommendation would be to really understand the history architecturally and socially of this house and to not change it, because this is there aren't that many first period houses in Hingham that are still extant in somewhat original condition, at least the main body of the front facade. And I would suggest being careful not to change any of the form language on this house, because I think you'll not be happy with that after the fact.
All right.
So just recommendations, be happy to talk or sit or review any of this information, share some of the experience and lessons I've learned over many years working on these period houses.
All right. Thank you, Gary.
Welcome.
So I think we'll schedule a site visit. So Andrea, you'll reach out. You're on mute. You're still on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. We normally schedule site visits for Saturday mornings. And so I will give you a call and we'll work out something that's agreeable.
Daniel? You're on mute.
Just rereading this application. I guess I just have a clarifying question. Are you guys the owners or working on behalf of the owners?
We're working on behalf of the owners, becoming the owners. So I was just trying to get ahead of taking ownership.
Gotcha. So this is your guys' design for your house, not a project for the current owner.
Correct.
All right, just trying to clarify that. Just names didn't match when I was looking at it. I was confused.
So Chris, is the purchase and sale contingent upon approval of your project?
Nope. No, we're moving in the 21st, Monday. So we're committed to the restoration.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Last item on the agenda, 693 Main Street. We saw this project a month or two ago with some fencing.
Yep. So I should share my screen.
Yeah. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi. Thank you for having me again. Happy to anchor this evening. Hopefully my screen share is working.
Oh, good. Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so we were brand new last month when we had our fence in front of the committee. It's been up. We're really happy with it. So thank you. So previous to the fence going in, we had our, I don't know what to call him, our landscaper / excavator who we've worked with for many years, working on the sort of the lot, trying to make it safe. It was a little bit overgrown. We have young kids, wanted to sort of clear some area out, grow some grass. There was the really interesting sort of pergola trellis here, and there's a couple tiers of the concrete stairs. It was a bit decrepit. Some were sort of leaning. The top was rotted out. So we wanted to clear it regardless, but the columns were so neat, we wanted to repurpose them. So we wanted to sort of make an outdoor dining area next to where the kitchen is in the house. And the house is very long and narrow. So this is kind of the most logical space. Our family likes to eat outside. So we thought that we would use these columns to recreate the lattice outside the kitchen here next to the house. It is set back pretty significantly. This is sort of the view from the carriage lane sidewalk down here. But essentially this wasn't extremely premeditated. We were kind of leveling the lot, wanted to repurpose them. It was a small window of opportunity because once the fence went in, the machines wouldn't be able to make their way to where these columns needed to be located. So ultimately we placed these columns here outside the door where it's kind of the logical footprint. We used 4 of the 6, used the same brick that was this kind of walkway that leads down the lot. This is kind of obviously looking up to the house. So this is the same brick laid in the same pattern. I think it's called a basket pattern. We could not repurpose the top because it was rotted and sort of falling apart. So came up with a design, collaborated with Tim McLeod, our contractor, sort of using inspiration from the house. So I call them corbels. I think they're called brackets or soffit brackets that are throughout the house, showed here. So sort of mounting on top of the columns and then laying the lattice on top with the same, we're going to replicate that flower along the side. So hopefully it looks like it was intended to be there. Also, since our last meeting, we've learned a lot about the house thanks to the treasure trove of articles and pictures that Mrs. O'Neill left behind. So it's been really interesting learning about the history. Apparently the house was built in 1878, but it was remodeled or sort of changed in character in 1892, which is when sort of the turret or the tower was built and the ornate shingles were added. So I kind of imagine this pergola being part of that reimagination in 1892. So I think because of the house's sort of ornate character, it makes sense. It's also set back really far, so it didn't occur to me that it was kind of in the purview of the committee at first, but here we are. It learns that it is, so that's all I got.
Stephanie, how tall are the columns as they stand
Okay.
without the, looks like you're putting some kind of wood cap and then the,
Yeah, so to make them line up with the top of the window, which seems like the natural alignment, this was the design. And just eyeballing it, I don't know the answer to that. I think it's about 11 inches. It was less than a foot, but I think 11 inches is what we were solving for with
the
height.
cap. The cap is about, okay.
Well, there's a 9. Were you talking about how high the whole trellis is, Kathy?
Oh, I see. The whole
The
trellis
9-foot
is
dimension.
9 foot, but I guess I
Yeah.
wanted to know how high the original, are they cement? Or
Yeah, it's like yes.
columns are, and then like what the extra, looks like quite a bit of extra on there.
Yeah, that's where the bracket comes into play. Taking the inspiration from throughout the house here sort of worked.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else? There's not any comments or questions.
Actually, I have one question. So, the original trellis was bigger. So, did you? You're just taking a portion of it, or basically reusing? I guess I'm confused at what's really moving. If the top
They're
is
just-
rotted and it was.
They reused I think they reused the columns. The columns are already in place because the fence is now in place. This is
There
what
were 6,
I
and
asked
they
the
were long
question at the
narrow.
last hearing, if there was work going on now. And they said there was some work, and I think it was these columns being installed was that work.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Now, if
that's
you look at the photos on page 1 or so, you can see the new fences in.
Yep.
And then these columns are kind of behind that fence.
Gotcha. Okay. I was just trying to understand if something was, to me, it's just kind of like a new trellis. It's not really
It's a new trellis. They reused the columns.
columns. Yeah. Okay. That makes, I was just.
Everything from the top of the column up is new, including little detailed corners and the brackets and
And the columns you're planning to paint white, the cast concrete, you're planning to paint that white
No, we are going to leave those as is
and
and
paint
paint the top white.
the top white.
But this makes it look like they're getting wrapped in something.
No, that's just how they look. I mean, let me see this is how they look today.
yeah. See, there's a base at the.
Oh, I see it now. Okay. All right.
Did you give any thought to keeping the whole product natural and not painting it?
Painting it to match the house was our contractor's idea, and I just thought it made the most sense. I don't know what material we'd use to be natural, maybe cedar, which I'm not opposed to, but I don't know how I think it would look better white, I guess, is the answer. But I'm kind of open to either. I would have loved to repurpose what was already on top. It would be more cost efficient, but it just wasn't doable. The size and the quality of the state of it wasn't achievable.
Stephanie? Can she? Do you have any idea, you said you've been reading a lot about the history that Eleanor left for you. Do you know when the addition in the center there, like, I guess, is that a kitchen or something? Do you know when that was built? Is it as old?
Yeah,
as
I don't have the answer on the tip of my fingers, but it's right here. I have the whole sort of contractors write-up. It's so interesting. So it was in the late 80s. It's not dated. I have the building department approval. It was late 80s, early 90s, I want to say.
1980s.
Yes.
1980s. Okay. So it's not, we're not covering up a nice old.
Oh, no, yeah. And I can see like the, so the addition that you see here behind sort of that bump out behind these 4 posts includes the flower, which was definitely sort of also fabricated to match and was definitely thoughtfully planned to match the house. So, yep. So going along with their thought process, I think.
Stephanie, I know you had a visit from the building commissioner. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so our builder, the guy working on this thought under 200 square feet didn't need a building permit. I think it's significantly less than that in Hingham. Anyway, we've submitted it. There was a recent request on the distance from the septic, which I think we're clear on. And I don't know that, do we have the actual permit? We've had a couple conversations with Mike Clancy and it seems to be okay. I don't know that we have the actual building permit yet, but we're in process.
Okay.
Shall I make a motion? Are there any questions?
Yeah, I was on mute. I asked if there was any other comments or questions. Go ahead, Kathleen.
Oh, I was just saying I can make a motion. Is that? All right. I'd like to make a motion for a certificate of appropriateness for 693 Main Street in the Glad Tidings Historic District, dated 11/4/22, to move a trellis from the backyard to the side yard area, replacing the rotted top with a painted white wood and pergola and corbels to match style of the house, rosettes to be on the corners of.
Is there a second?
Second.
You ended up muting, Catherine.
I'll second it.
I muted myself. And then
Talk about the rosettes.
We have a-
on the corners.
It's been a long night.
Yeah,
It was
we have,
after the rosettes that we lost you.
Yeah, rosettes on the
Yeah.
corner.
all right, so we have a second. Justin, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Carol?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Aye for me. So motion passes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Stephanie.
Have a great night.
You too. Okay. So let's see, I just want to make sure I'll schedule one site visit to 66 Lincoln. And I know we've got Thanksgiving coming up and the next hearing I think is December the 15th, if I'm not mistaken. And so it would have to be sometime, obviously, one Saturday before that. Is anybody going anywhere or doing anything that's?
I am going somewhere.
Oh, yay.
I don't know exactly when I'm going, but it's, I think, the 7th through the 19th. So I'd miss that. That's okay.
Okay, well, we'll figure it out. Anybody
Andrew,
else?
I'm gone the 3rd.
You're gone the 3rd. Okay.
Think I'm around all the time.
Yippee.
Yay.
Catherine's gone on.
I could give you a better date. Let me give you a better date. I'll be right back.
Oh, sure. Okay, Daniel is gone on the 3rd. Okay, anybody else?
All right, the 10th through the, no, wait. Oh, 12th through the 19th.
Okay. All right. All right, that's good. I'll schedule something with the Kerrs. And so we'll see. Anybody else have anything to say? Gary, thank you very much. I thought that was very instructive.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. That was useful info.
Thanks,
Yeah,
glad
it
to help.
was, yeah, thank you very much. You do have a lot of knowledge and we appreciate it. So it probably, I hope, yeah, it was a lot of information for our applicants. So that's good.
I find that the books are very, very informative.
Yeah, you know what, Gary, that's what I was going to ask you. If you could please either email me or you want to call me so I can get those references down. They should be part of the minutes. Okay,
I'll do that. I'll send you an email with them.
Thank you.
References.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
I made
Okay.
notes.
So, thank you, everybody, unless, I don't have minutes because I forgot to send them out. I mean, Miss Tracy used to keep me organized and she's gone. So.
When do you get your new person? Do you get a new person soon?
Well, we eventually will. We do have some candidates and, so we'll be interviewing shortly. There's a person who may, just take minutes as a recording secretary, but not necessarily be long-term. So we'll see. But in the interim, we miss Tracy.
I'll take meeting minutes if you help abate my income tax or my property taxes.
That's great. So, you know, I know that, thank you, Eric, for looking at the submissions beforehand. And I know you said that the Kerrs, the 666 Lincoln was not very clear. And so we'll try and rectify that for the next time. But I appreciate you taking a look at things to make sure we're not missing something key.
Are we able to say that it's incomplete and not put it on the agenda?
Yes,
Okay.
you just let me know.
So one of us could just say, oh, Andrea, I don't think there's enough information for, and then you wouldn't put it on, or how would that work?
Well, I think we'd have to identify what it was, and then I could tell them, you know, you have to produce this or wait till the next hearing cycle. you
Yeah, the
know?
only issue with that is we get our packets after the agenda is usually issued. So, but I guess you can always revise the agenda, right?
Yes, but we have Eric who is looking at all these things. And
Yeah.
so he did flag that 66 Lincoln was not quite complete.
Can I make a recommendation that if Eric flags it, that maybe Tracy, I hate to assign work to you, but whoever the chair is at the time, look at it and make the determination if it should stay on or not?
Agree. Maybe it's not fair to the commission or the applicant, and we're trying to.
That's a very good point. So Eric, you're the man.
Appreciate it. No, that's good. I mean, I didn't really know how far to take it. You know, it definitely seemed like it wasn't put together
No,
efficiently.
you
but
were
again,
exactly right.
okay. Because we've
And
definitely got some that have been worse and we've heard them, but
Yeah.
I think it kind of just, it depends on what the scope is, right? Like, this is a significant project in scope. This is different than when we helped somebody trying to put a fence in and kind of just clarified their intent of a fence location.
Yeah.
And a sensitive property.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I think, yeah. So when you flag something for us, Eric, and I'll ask Tracy. And
yeah, but I can be more, I can elaborate more too.
all right, that's great. I mean,
I'll give my opinion, I guess, if I feel like it needs to be pulled out, but then please send to Tracy just to confirm one way or the other.
Yeah, that's great. That'd be very helpful. I think that's, that I find extremely helpful. So despite what I try and do, sometimes meeting with applicants ahead of time, it doesn't always sink in. Most time it does, but sometimes it doesn't. So anyway, there we have it.
All right.
So that's good. Anything else, anybody? We should probably think about scheduling another business meeting because Dan has been working on some stuff. And so probably January, do you think, after the holidays?
Yeah, I don't think it'll fit in December.
Me either. Me either. Okay, so, all right, well, thank you all.
I'll make a
And-
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
Roll
Let's do a
call.
Roll call. Justin,
Oh, aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
Carol, and it's an aye for me.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, I didn't even let you go, Carol. Sorry. I heard aye.
So Carol, I have to say, I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off when you were talking about 721. But we also had to take a look at, a better role versus giving feedback. So anyway, I apologize if you were offended. Were you?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. I know, I could tell.
I think sometimes you forget you're not a member of the commission.
Me?
Yeah, to give opinions and things that I think shouldn't come from anyone but a commission person.
Okay, maybe you can talk to me about that in more detail. That'd be helpful.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, good evening.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thanks.
Likewise.